Welcome back to the Product-Led Festival. Stay seated because there's another exciting presentation about to start. Before we kick off the next batch of kick-ass content, we'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors for helping us bring this awesome event to your screens. And don't forget, you can access even more incredible content, from exclusive articles and interviews to all past and future events on demand, as well as templates and frameworks by becoming a PLA member. Head over to productledalliance.com for more info. Enjoy the next presentation. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome back to the next presentation for today as part of the Product-Led Festival. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Jeremy Horn, also known as the Product Guy. Jeremy is the Vice President of Product Management at Cognizant, and will be talking to us today about product innovation at scale. Jeremy also runs the product group meetup. So if you're not familiar with it, you should definitely check that out too. So I'd like to give a very warm welcome to Jeremy to the virtual stage.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me here today. So yeah, we're going to be talking about product innovation at scale, and something that Cognizant definitely knows a lot about. But before we kind of dive fully into that, just a little bit about myself. As was just briefly mentioned, I run the product group. We've got very large centers here in New York City, where I'm currently broadcasting from, as well as in London. I also run, and these are the things that I do in my free time, in my hobby time. I also run a mentorship program for people, for product managers. We're in over 20 countries around the world. So always feel free to kind of sign up there. Lots of ways to always get in touch with me. I'm always happy to talk to more product people. We're always recruiting. I'm always looking to just learn about new perspective and new approaches to product management. So feel free to reach out to me on my LinkedIn or contact me directly at Cognizant. Myself, I've been doing product management for over 2 decades now. As was mentioned, I'm the VP and global head of product management at Cognizant. We have over 300,000 associates all around the world today. But I've spent a lot of my time in the startup space. I spent a lot of my time working for large organizations. I think most notably over at Viacom. I've worked in most every vertical that Cognizant's in, from media and security to gaming, wearables, IoT, AI, a whole bunch of things. I've done a bunch of teaching over at the New School, General Assembly, etc. But if you ever want to read more about my bio, you can always kind of click through for a lot of these things. But I just thought it'd be good to give you a little bit of background there. And so with that said, let me kind of set the scene, because we're going to be talking about scale. We're going to be walking through an interesting case study where I think there's a lot of takeaways. But I want to help everyone kind of understand kind of the foundation of this conversation. And so let's talk a little bit about what Cognizant is. At Cognizant, our purpose is to engineer modern businesses to improve everyday life. And this is a extremely broad scope, but it's the kind of scope that we're able to help our clients with. We start with engineering in the sense that we're all about building. Other consultancies often work kind of purely on strategy or purely on design. We do those too, but we always have an eye towards building something for our clients, driving business value, driving opportunity. Next is modern business. We see that the world is changing, and I think we all see that the world is changing at an accelerating rate all the time. Our clients don't want to be left behind and disrupted by smaller players. They want to stay competitive. They want to leapfrog ahead, and they want to make sure, and they need help from us in moving in the direction of the modern. And finally, we're here to help make life better. For our clients, for our customers. That's the driving force for Cognizant, for myself. It's about how do you create better products? How do you do it better? How do you make sure that you're driving towards important business outcomes and driving critical business value? And really just to drive home the point as to how large we really are, especially as we start talking about the scale of a lot of what we're here to talk about today. These are just some of the industries that you can see that we do work in. Our customers are in every sector, and they are leaders in those sectors. So what makes us unique is that while we have expertise in developing innovative products, we also understand what it takes to be successful when operating in a more complex environment, and as the theme of the day is, at enterprise scale. So let's make sure we're intersecting this with something that is very close to me, product management. And so let's focus a little bit more specifically on that product management. Product management, it's an exciting field, yet it's understood and executed, and you have to recognize differently in different places. So I want to show you a little bit about what we do in product management at Cognizant, and especially what that kind of means for our unique approach. Many of you have probably seen the traditional Venn diagram of product management that positions it at the intersection of design, strategy, engineering. It's a very common slide that people see all the time. Well, it's not incorrect, but at Cognizant, we like to add another layer to that, and that's, as you can see here, operations. This is because our clients. This is because of our clients. Like, remember, at the point where we come in to address a pain point or a challenge or develop an opportunity, these products exist, or these problems exist. They're running successful, albeit maybe archaic businesses. And if we don't seek to first understand how operations work within their business, how all the systems that surround them, we don't work to attack that, then we're not going to be able to develop a sustainable value that they are seeking, that sets them up for the long run. And so when you're thinking about, and let's talk about innovation for a brief moment. A lot of people have this image. A lot of people have this image of how innovation is done. Beautiful open plan offices where everyone is getting free cold brew. But we have seen time and time again that innovation can happen in spaces that look like the more traditional office space. And just because there might be cold brew on tap doesn't mean that they can't just be just as innovative. But that operations piece of the Venn diagram that I just showed you does become an important piece of the puzzle. Our practice, as we approach product management, we do have this uniform expectation of just that core baseline skill set of a product manager. But our practice is to meet the clients where they are. Sometimes that means our clients operate in a more traditional waterfall manner. Other times, they've already started to modernize and incorporated various aspects of Agile. Either way, our goal is to improve their practice, improve their products, drive real business value, like we do with ours all the time, and continuously push it towards the idealized practice that not only works for their context, but also to ensure that they're able to maximize value for their business as well as their customers. So to show you what I mean, I'm going to tell you about a case study. Now for this case study, the names have been changed to protect the innocent. But this is a case study that I think everyone's going to get a lot of great value out of here. So I'm very excited to be presenting this here to you today. So when I thought about an example I could use that to really showcase that innovation can happen in unlikely places, the thought that really came to mind when I was thinking about big, traditional, sometimes slow to adapt organizations. And naturally, I thought an insurance company would hammer that point home. At a high level, our client came to us with a few asks. They were mainly looking for a way to reduce call center costs, but wanted to leverage our knowledge of product development to help them implement innovative practices in order to be able to increase speed to market across their company for new digital products and enhancements. It started the journey with another consultancy, something very common, but for a number of reasons, we're very unhappy. They're looking to hand over to us to help them succeed and to scale. So step 0, for those of you who like to start at that particular index. So our step 0, in essence, the consultancy, we were taking it over from, they were stuck. They were stuck at the MVP. They couldn't figure out how to work with the organization in order to either clear the red tape or to deploy it beyond a small test group of customers or align a path forward for bringing the product to scale. Part of the challenge was their methodology, moving people to their offices to learn their culture, build, and then return. The issue with that was, for this organization, was those people didn't understand how they could use their new skills to fit in when they got back. During this time, they also burned a lot of trust with the client stakeholders. And as we know, with all product management, credibility is one of our most important cornerstones, one of our most critical foundational elements. They were overly dogmatic about the best way to develop products. They didn't take time to get to know and understand their stakeholders. They just burned trust. Also impacted the employees who had undergone training, because many of those stakeholders at the leadership level looked negatively on the experience that they had. The product leaders' first step was to really align with the stakeholders that we brought in there, who were both feeling like they had gotten burned. Luckily, everyone was very vocal about the problems, so the focus was more on aligning on a path forward and working to begin to build trust that had been eroded. This meant a lot of one-on-ones, using the information to craft the plan that would get the client back on track. While we were building out that plan, we also were mapping into the organization what was most impactful to their success. We looked at who had the most to gain, who had the most to lose, who would likely be a supporter, what could be a detractor. And we looked at the power dynamics, including assessing formal and informal decision makers and influencers. This led to more one-on-ones, of course, but with a main focus on building relationships. Yet another one of those important cornerstones that we like to highlight. As part of this case study, we wanted to introduce stakeholder mapping. While this is a must-have in the consulting world, it is very helpful in in-house product world too. So much of what's of being successful to the product world is about managing people. We all think through product strategy. We all think about roadmaps. But at the end of the day, if you can't get everyone to move along with you, then you're never going to deliver on that great North Star vision that you've crafted. The first step is to draw the org chart that you know about. This is usually who's signing the checks at first. Then you build it out. You might start with core stakeholders. Next, you move on to the secondary stakeholders, people who rely on information or who might have a degree of influence over the direction of your product. Sometimes those people are the most important to get on your side, so don't forget them. And finally, our tertiary stakeholders. These might be people who need to be informed about your product, but who don't have any direct say over its direction. Next, step 2. We needed to move this project forward. Like that is why we're there. And the way to do this was by starting small, building that credibility, moving the needle, showing that value can be generated. What is it that we can ship that will help? What is the thing that we need to know the most? What do we need to do? What do we really need to learn here? I'm not going to talk about this as some special process. This is lean. We're talking about lean methodology here. What we do the same practices that small organizations do, but with a lot of care of aligning with the current org. And at the end of the day, figuring out how to drive that innovation at scale. In this case, we built a beta page to help answer questions about premium changes. This allowed us to see possible impact on calling for those who would see the page. Yes, that meant metrics, setting target outcomes and measuring the specific impact towards those outcomes that our work had. It also allowed us to build that critical trust that I was talking about earlier with the stakeholders. Again, insurance is by its very nature a risk-averse industry. And all of our stakeholders were concerned about potential damage to the brand. And while a beta page meant that we couldn't get the high impact that we thought possible right off the bat, the trust that we were able to build allowed us to take more liberties with the product, get to scale quicker than we had taken riskier approaches from the get-go. The next practice I want to talk about here is about systems thinking. This is important because at scale, you aren't just impacting your project. You have to think more broadly. You have to think about where that project sits within the larger ecosystem that you're working on. The sooner that you can think outside of your box and think of the bigger picture, the more that you can go after those real outcomes that you're trying to achieve. Most of the time, this is because we don't draw the bounding box at the right place with regards to our impact. When it comes to systems thinking, you should always be asking yourself about the following. Are there outcomes that you should be linked to? Are there metrics outside of your project that would be impacted by your work? Are there parts that your stakeholders care about? The main lesson is that we are the blind people trying to understand what an elephant is by touching it. Any particular part, and you could have a very different interpretation of what that elephant would be than understanding it altogether. It's your job as a product leader to gain that clarity and help your teams understand it as well. After we started small, we iterated. Small changes add up when they're done with learning and iteration. And because we had a strong vision with target outcomes, a roadmap grounded in customer feedback and call center metrics, and the trust of our stakeholders, we were able to focus those iterations towards real and true scale. We took that MVP, we were able to develop and align accounts and stakeholders around that into the next phase. The next practice that we embrace at scale is customer development. At this point in the project, we're talking with customers, those that talk to customers, looking at the analytics that pointed to new behaviors. In fact, we believe that bringing along stakeholders to the research is the most important. Jared Spool has said many times that the most important aspect of product decision making is to see how real people use your stuff. Ethnographic research, open-ended interviews. We live by that, by bringing the stakeholders into the interviews rather than just providing them with summaries. They gain a better understanding of the why. They are able to hear firsthand their own customers' pain points and make those connections firsthand of how our products directly solve those problems. The image to the right is from Steve Blank, another one of those greats in the world of product management, and his quote's about getting out of the building. We need to be talking with our customers and stakeholders both inside and outside of the building. The last step of any successful project, one that our predecessor wasn't able to do, is deploy the project, not as a beta or an MVP, but as a fully functioning part of the product. After this point, you still need to maintain those elements, lead what made lead that made what was successful. To start with, you have to keep listening to your customers, observing their behavior, integrating that into the next problem. And for goodness sake, don't forget to continue to align with your stakeholders. This is a continuous process. All these different examples that we've been talking about here today are around continuously integrating continuous cycles of all of these practices at the scale and with those outcomes in mind. What was important for our future relationship with the client was showing the other teams within the org how they could work like this too. This is how most consulting changes from a pure contracting time for work relationship to one where we are like a steward for their products, in there for the long run, invested in their outcomes, invested in their value. We become advisors on product direction and coaches for their employees. At the end state, we basically satisfied stakeholders. They re-upped for more work. the business was impacting work, reduced costs, and faster release cycles. It moved from quarterly to biweekly. As you can see, we didn't just ship an innovative MVP, but we realized real outcomes that were beneficial to our clients as well as their customers. In the end, the difference at scale is that you don't need to take you need to take the org into account. If you don't do that, you aren't going to ship an impactful work. You aren't going to be driving that real business value of scale. So in closing, I just wanted to re-highlight some of these key takeaways. As you're working to drive product innovation at scale, you need to understand the history and context of the larger organization. 2, consider how an innovative project fits into the larger system. 3, stakeholder management is a must. People management, people management, people management. Agile and lean practices still work if you do what all the other steps that we highlighted above. And just to kind of give you more of a sense, when you're thinking about, like, we approach this at Cognizant in many facets. Product managers do bring a unique value to the organization. They're the people who make sure everything that's happening across the chain is gravitating directly towards and generating additional business value. In other words, they're the voice of the user within the business, looking at optimizing the experience with business objectives in mind. A great product manager thinks in terms of impact. Is this going to wow our customers? Will move the needle on objectives? Will the C-suite see this project as a success? Will it make us memorable? Even more importantly, it won't make us indispensable. And so with that said, I want to say thank you. And if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Hi, Jeremy. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do have questions, please do pop them into the chat. I've got one here from Raul. What tools do you use to collate feedback?
So there's a lot of different tools. Like if you're talking analytics, we do use some various analytical packages. Everything from Full Story to even Google Analytics from time to time. But I can't stress enough, when I was talking about getting out of the building, I can't stress enough how critical that is. And sometimes that's just a pen and paper or laptop, laptop and a partner to talk to the different customers, to talk to the different individuals, and get that information that you need there.
Nice. And how have you been collecting feedback in the remote environment? Has it been through kind of virtual meetings or?
Just like this, yeah. Just like this. I'd say one of the most interesting things about the pandemic, while in the world of product management, it was definitely strange a year ago to think that you would do product management remotely. I would say one of the fascinating parts of the pandemic is, well, while you might be remote, you find out very quickly everyone else is too. And so in those situations where you used to have to bring everyone to the coffee house and line them up and schedule and hope people showed up, guess what? Now you just do it right here. You sit down and they're probably sitting down in front of a computer already. So it's actually made people a lot more accessible and a lot easier to get in touch with, especially in terms of customer development.
Nice. I've had 1 or 2 requests for the slide deck as well, Emily, and someone in the private chat. Are you going to be able to share those, Jeremy?
Yes, we'll be sharing this deck out. Yes.
Okay. Brilliant. Are there any other questions from anyone? Michele said, yes, operations ongoing is often overshadowed by launching product. Agreed. Any more? Well, we've got Jeremy here. Awesome. Well, Jeremy, if you could share that slide deck and I'll distribute it, that would be awesome. Everyone, thank you very much for tuning in. I've pinned Jeremy's LinkedIn to the top here so you can connect with him if you've got questions you'd like to share or ask offline, well, online, offline. So please do connect with Jeremy. Check out the product group, even if you're not based in New York or London. They're both fantastic communities, and especially now it doesn't really matter where we are in the world at the moment because we're all online. thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. And thank you, Jeremy, for a fantastic presentation.
Thank you. And we are doing a lot of global recruiting. So if you're interested in joining our organization, reach out to me through LinkedIn, and I'll get you connected up with the right folks.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks, Jeremy. Bye-bye.
Bye.